Elena walked slowly along the park path, surrounded by the quiet of a spring morning. It had been her daily refuge since she moved to Turin, seeking some peace after years of suffering. The city had become her home after a tragedy had turned her life upside down. Before continuing, subscribe to our channel and activate the bell. At over 50, Elena's face bore the marks of time and the pain that had accompanied her throughout her life. 30 years earlier, she had lost her son, Filippo, when he was only 4 years old. He had disappeared without a trace. The police had searched for months, but without success. There were no clues, no explanations, just a devastating void. Since then, Elena had learned to live with that loss, but the pain had never completely subsided. Her life had become a slow drag between memories and the hope that one day something could change. As she walked through the park that morning, she saw a group of children playing soccer. The sound of their laughter rang out in the fresh air. One of them, a boy with dark hair and light eyes, immediately caught her attention. There was something about him, the way he ran and smiled, that reminded her incredibly of Philip. Elena's heart began to beat faster. It couldn't be. Filippo would be a man by now, but that resemblance was disconcerting. Every movement of that child took her back in time, to those few happy years she had lived with her son. The boy stopped playing for a moment and ran toward a woman sitting on a nearby bench. Elena followed him with her gaze, feeling a strange feeling of hope and nostalgia growing inside her. She couldn't explain that reaction, but something urged her to know more. She decided to approach the woman, trying not to appear too agitated. "Excuse me," she said with a trembling voice. "What a beautiful child. What is his name?" The woman, a young woman in her mid-30s, smiled warmly. "His name is Lorenzo," she replied with a smile. Elena felt frozen. Everything reminded her of something painfully familiar. She sat down next to them, unable to hide the emotion that tightened her heart. "Excuse me for being indiscreet," Elena continued, trying to control herself, "but your son reminds me a lot of my own Filippo. I lost him many years ago, and the resemblance, well, it struck me." The woman, who introduced herself as Anna, looked at her with a look full of compassion. "I'm so sorry," she said. "I can't even imagine what it feels like to lose a son. Lorenzo is my life." Anna's words seemed sincere, but Elena was growing an uncontrollable curiosity. Elena nodded, trying to hold back her tears. She didn't want to seem strange or intrusive, but there was something about that child that took her back in time, to the day Philip disappeared. However, she decided not to ask any more questions at that moment, even though deep down she knew she couldn't ignore that feeling. Her mind was filling with questions, memories, and an inexplicable hope that she could no longer suppress. Back home, Elena couldn't stop thinking about Lorenzo. His resemblance to Filippo was uncanny, and the way Anna talked about him made her think of too many coincidences. The next day, she decided to go back to the park in the hope of seeing Anna and Lorenzo again. When she saw them again, her heart raced. She approached slowly, trying to stay calm. "Good morning, Anna," she said with a smile. Anna recognized her and greeted her warmly. Elena sat down next to her, trying to start a casual conversation. They talked about the weather, about the children playing in the park, but Elena couldn't contain her curiosity. "That bracelet Lorenzo is wearing," she finally said, "reminds me so much of the one I had made for my son before he disappeared." Anna looked at the bracelet and smiled. "Oh, yes, it's a gift from her father. He gave it to her when she was 5. He says it's a lucky charm." Elena felt her heart sink. The bracelet was identical to the one she had made for Philip before he disappeared. The coincidence was too big to ignore. Determined to get some answers, Elena called Andrea, an old friend who worked as a private investigator. Andrea had already helped Elena during the search for Filippo many years before, but without results. This time, however, there were new clues. She told him about Lorenzo, about the resemblance to Filippo, and about the bracelet. Andrea, although skeptical, agreed to investigate. A few days of waiting passed, days of tension and hope, until Andrea suddenly called her. "Elena, you have to come right away. I have some news." When Elena arrived at his office, Andrea sat her down and showed her a photo. "Look, this is Anna's husband. His name is Luca, but there's something strange. There are no documents about him before he was 10 years old." Elena stared at the photo in disbelief. "What does it mean?" she asked, her heart pounding. Andrea sighed. "It means he may have changed his identity, or his true story has been hidden. I found out Luca lived abroad most of his life before returning to Italy recently for a job." Elena's heart began to race. "And Filippo?" she asked, her voice breaking with emotion. "Could it be him?" Andrea nodded slowly. "I can't say for sure, but there are too many coincidences. Luca only recently returned to Italy, and Lorenzo is his son." Andrea's every word fueled the hope he had tried to stifle for years. Elena couldn't believe what she was hearing. The possibility that Luca was her Filippo was now too real to ignore. She decided to confront Anna directly. When she met her again at the park, Elena took courage and told her story. Anna, surprised and shocked, listened attentively. "I don't know what to say," she said finally. "My husband has always been very secretive about his past, but maybe it's time to find out the truth." A few days later, Anna arranged a meeting between Elena and Luca. When Elena saw him, her heart skipped a beat. Luca, now a grown man, looked at her with the same look Filippo had as a child. "It's you," Elena whispered, unable to hold back her tears. "You're Filippo, my son." Luca was silent for a moment. Then, his eyes filled with emotion, he said, "I don't remember much from my childhood, but I always felt that something was missing. Now I understand what." They hugged each other, finally reunited after years of separation. For Elena, all the past pain dissolved in that single moment. Filippo, or Luca as he was known now, had lived abroad for most of his life, after being adopted by a family that had taken him far away. He had returned to Italy only for a job, without knowing that his destiny would bring him back to his mother. Lorenzo, his son, was the grandson that Elena did not know she had. Elena hugged him tightly, unable to hold back her tears. The long wait, the pain, everything seemed to dissolve in that moment. After so many years, she had finally found her son. Did you like this story? Leave a comment below. Thanks for watching the video till the end, and see you next story.